I can think of countless projects that I've been on that started with, we need a new piece of software or a SaaS, or probably my favorite is we need a button on our website, and that's going to solve every problem imaginable. And ultimately, the button, the technology solution, actually made the problem worse.
The world, our organizations, and customer needs are changing too fast for monolithic projects to take months to years to be implemented. We need that value now, yet few teams can operate in pure agile, and those challenges magnify with scale and rising complexity. The answer is shifting to a solution delivery lifecycle that includes improving intake, product management, and operations. It's no longer simply about development and deployment. Joining me here today to talk a little bit more about how we're going to implement that in practice is Principal Research Director Vince Mirabelli, advisor on Solution DLC. Vince, what have you been hearing out there in terms of pain in the marketplace that led us down this road, and why people should actually care about this solution delivery lifecycle?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, great to be here, Jeff. Thanks for having me. I would say the thing that we hear the most is about building alignment with your business partners. So as a technology team, how do we ensure that we're aligned well with what our business partners and the entire organization are trying to achieve? And part of that led to this expansion, this reimagining of what the software development lifecycle, the traditional SDLC, is. And it's no longer just about software. It's about that holistic end-to-end process of delivery of value. And so it's not about software. Software may be one of the pieces that we deliver, but this is about delivering a solution that adds value and builds alignment across the organization.
Vince, tell me a little bit about the current state, this world of software development lifecycle and not solution development lifecycle. Where's the pain? What are some of the risks of doing it that way?
When we're looking through that software lens, we're really hyper-focused on that development and delivery of software. But what it misses is the bookends. So at the front end, we've got product management. Are we building the right products? Are we delivering the right value to our stakeholders? Are we doing the right things and building the right things for our stakeholders that become part of that solution? At the other end, we have this concept of continuous improvement, continuous delivery. So are we delivering software sort of monolithically, and at the end, it's like, here's your thing, away you go? Or are we taking more of a lower A, agile approach, iterative approach at the end, and emphasizing, implementing, and enabling a continuous delivery model so that we're cycling through and enhancing the value that the solution brings. So it's no longer just about software. Software is the piece in the middle that may enable the delivery of value, but it's really about those bookends that's really different. And that's why we had to expand this definition to include that end-to-end solution.
Vince, one of the key insights, maybe the key insight, underpinning this entire research set, is that delivery is about more than just software. Can you share with me, what that means to you, and what technology leaders should be thinking about in that capacity?
We tend to default to this software solves everything, and at the end of the day, our stakeholders don't care about software or process enhancements or changes. They're trying to solve a problem. And so what we're doing here is we're trying to enable that and help them get to that place where they're able to solve their problem. We're helping them solve their problems. I can think of countless projects that I've been on that started with, we need a new piece of software or a SaaS, or probably my favorite is we need a button on our website, and that's going to solve every problem imaginable. And ultimately, the button, I won't get into the specific details, but the button, the technology solution, actually made the problem worse. And so that was an example where technology and the software did not solve the problem. What we had was actual, a need for a process change and a need for some additional oversight and governance. And so that's the piece that really includes that, treating the product as a whole, so that we deliver optimal solutions. So we start with product management. What are the right things? What are the right features? What are the right functions? And how are we going to manage our products, our processes, our projects, whatever we want to call them? And then down into that idea of continuous delivery. So deploying a solution, iterating, fixing what might be broke, or what we don't like, or what features are going to continue to enhance value. So it really does take that end to end. It's not about that software. The software is important, right? I don't want to minimize the impact and the value of software, but it's a way we get to the solution and to that delivery of value. It's not the end.
In a solution DLC world, how does product management, or how does that initial piece prevent us from going off the rails, prevent us from we just need software, we just need a button on the website problem?
If you've got effective product managers, they can do a really good job of cutting through the noise to ensure that the features and those functions, the pieces that are going down through the funnel, actually are going to add value. And so they become, I don't want to say that they're the gatekeepers, because that gives them this air of authority, but what they really do is they understand what it is that the business and the organization and their stakeholders need, and then they're guiding it through the various definitions of done, so that it's to a point of, okay, now it's ready, we've articulated the problem, we understand the impact, we understand why this needs to exist. Now we're ready to develop a piece of software, or some lines of code that help us solve the problem. So product managers effectively become the gatekeepers to effective solution delivery.
What does an effective product manager look like? And is it buildable, or do you have to hire for that?
So I think both. I think both are possible. I think good product managers, we like to say good product managers or product owners are like CEOs of their product, right? They own it. They own every aspect of it. They own the budget, they own the plan, they own the strategy, they own everything. All too often I see product owners who are proxies. They're representatives of the business. And so they may be product owners in title, but they're still just following the direction of their line of business partners. And we all know that they all want technology, and that's fine. Good product owners are like that true owner. They own it from end to end. So I would say it's a skill that you can acquire, because there are people that probably have that skill. Although I would maybe argue that having someone in-house that develops the skill may be of more value. And the reason I say that is they already come in with that tacit organizational knowledge. They understand the culture, they understand the players, they understand how to navigate the waters, as it were. And so they may need upskilling in the technical aspects of product management. And then they probably need some practice and some experience. But I think that you could go either way. I know which way I would suggest. Yeah.
Vince, in this research, one of the first statements that we make is that waterfall is dead. What do we mean by that, and what are the implications?
I think at this point, waterfall has outlived its life. I think there's still a place for it somewhere in the world, but not in the world that we live in now. We're moving at too fast a pace to spend months and months and potentially years planning those big, monolithic, massive projects, because the world is changing. And so waterfall is dead is really our way of saying, you can't, waterfall does not have a place anymore. Now, I will say, I have seen in some instances where organizations try to make that transition to agile and just end up recreating waterfall in small, it's like mini waterfall. They need it now.
Right. So one of the things I caught you saying there was, basically monolithic projects bad, right? Which is kind of a component of this whole no waterfall approach. I have to believe there are organizations out there that, could be hearing that and saying, well, tell that to my boss because I'm in the middle of this like monolithic project. How do we get out of that? And how do we make sure that, when we do have to deliver new kind of, foundational business systems, what should that look like in the modern era?
It can be challenging, particularly for larger legacy organizations. It's much like steering a battleship, right? You need to start turning hours before you actually need to turn. And so it's not going to change overnight. What we need to do is really espouse the value of delivering iteratively and the impact that that has on our organizations and on our solutions, but also on our stakeholders. Just like anything else, we need to present the what's in it for them. So what's in it for our organization to deliver iteratively, and I won't even say agile, but to deliver iteratively versus in that large upfront planning, which may or may not ever come to fruition. I'm sure everyone that's watching this or that has been in the project space for any time has worked on a project that never got out of planning. And so, you could spend years planning something that never actually delivers value. I think if we avoid the waterfall delivery method and go to a more iterative method, we're going to deliver value, or we're going to figure out what doesn't work fairly quickly.
The next key insight that came out of this, I was reading, is that business unit integration is not optional. So tell me a little bit about how we got there and what that means and what that looks like in practice.
Yeah, we need each other. One of the things that I've tried to really push is this distinction between I'm in IT and I'm in the business. And unless you've outsourced your IT function, you're all the business. And so recognizing that the involvement of our business stakeholders is not an option. We need them, and they need us, right? So it's sort of a symbiotic relationship between the different lines of business, let's call them. It's not about us versus them. It's about how do we align so that we're delivering value to each other. From the business perspective, we're getting the right solutions that are going to help us solve the problems and the challenges that we're facing that day. From an IT perspective, we're working on things that add value, and we're not working on pet projects or working on initiatives that maybe don't help the organization achieve their strategic goals and objectives. So we need each other, and the only way that that's possible is by building that alignment, building that bridge between those two lines of business.
How do you do that? What does that look like, that integration? How do you get started?
It starts with understanding what it is that your business partners need, and then you start the process of building that bridge. It really is about building trust and enabling that alignment between us and them. And I don't use that carefully because I don't want to make that argument that it's us versus them. It's not. But it's about building that bridge and building trust and ensuring that we're all aligned to how we're going to deliver value. How are we going to deliver value for our stakeholders, and how are they going to receive value from us? They need IT and technology to unlock the value. Until we get to that delivery, we only have potential value, right? We're building potential value. We're building potential value all along our funnel. It's not until we actually launch that into the world, deploy it, that our business partners start to realize that value. And that, at the end of the day, that's what they care about. So we need to build trust. We need to demonstrate that we are capable and have the ability to deliver that iterative value to our stakeholders. So it becomes a process of just building and growing together.
In our research, Vince, I noticed, we took a stand when it comes to solution delivery, and we said quality has to come before throughput. Can you expand on that for us and how we got there and what the risks are of maybe doing it the other way around?
Yeah, I mean, so do we want to deploy suboptimal solutions into our stakeholder group, into our customer group? No, of course not. And so by building in quality up front, we ensure that we are reducing the amount of rework, we're reducing the amount of required effort, and we're reducing we're increasing our stakeholder satisfaction with the solutions that they receive. So to your previous question, that's one of the things that we can do to start building that trust and building that relationship with our stakeholders. But we need to get to that point where we are delivering value.
How do you get to these quality standards, and who needs to be, sitting at the table to do so?
One of the biggest challenges, I think, is actually aligning on a shared definition of quality. Like, what does quality mean? It can be subjective, and one organization's definition of quality is going to be very different than another. So what's important is that all stakeholders align on what that definition means so that you can drive towards that, achieving that level of quality. The last thing you want to do is have a difference or a delta in that definition within your stakeholder groups, where one group is has defined quality as this, and another has defined it as this, and that's how you get that conflict between stakeholder groups, because they're just not aligned. So first and foremost, define what quality means so that you can align and drive towards that.
I'm joined today by three esteemed analysts from Infotech: Ari Glazel, Rob Fail, and Vince Mirabelli. Gentlemen, I want to jump right into the discussion on Solution DLC. Really interesting and innovative model here. And I wanted to ask you right off the bat, is this something that is kind of tailor-made for small, medium-sized, projects and software challenges, or does it scale all the way up to kind of enterprise software? Vince, do you want to take that first?
The principles that are included in the blueprint apply across the board. I think they help establish good practices in your software delivery, your product management, and your continuous improvement, continuous delivery model. So that builds out your solution DLC. So I would say that this scales across the board.
I got a question for either of you, if you don't mind me asking a question now based on that. Would you start there? Like if I'm picking up the Infotech research on this, would you start with, say, for example, your ERP implementation, or would you start with something smaller?
It would depend. It's always about depends, right?
Right.
It is one of those, if you have no process or framework to work with, then this will give you a starting place. Mm-hmm. If you already have certain pieces in place, mm-hmm. then maybe you need to optimize some of those first.
Right.
If, for example, intake, right. Requirements analysis. If you don't have that piece, then the rest of it's not going to work because there's no solution to deliver because you don't actually or can't
right.
figure out what you're delivering.
Mm-hmm.
So that in the end you have to have the start in the right place mm-hmm. to get you through. You also ultimately will need the framework because you need from start to finish.
Right.
So does it apply? Yes, it should probably apply to everything. Do you have to apply it to everything immediately? No, but you will at some point.
I would say, just to build on that, I would say, could you apply it to an ERP size project from jump? Yes, you could.
Yeah.
Should you? I'm a big believer in getting some at-bats and getting some practice and locking in the process before being able to apply it at a broader scale. So it would scare me to do something that massive, right. But that's not to say that you couldn't.
Well, so let me take that.
Uh-oh.
Because for an ERP, the reason actually people have Infotech is because we have the experience to take you through that solution framework. So you don't have to apply it. You use our methodology, you apply our expertise to give you the framework without actually having you to understand the framework. But so it does get applied. I don't think you'll be successful without the framework in an ERP implementation, but you don't necessarily have to have it. You can borrow it from an expert such as us.
Just staying on that point for a minute, Rob. One of the maybe more controversial things, we wrote on this is just waterfall is dead, right? As one of our insights. Given the work you do in the enterprise app space, is waterfall dead? Should it be dead? Is it dead in some areas? And how does that apply when we get to the biggest implementations?
My background, software developer for more than 20 years. There's always been that question. Now, I've always been on the more flexible, I'm not very good at following rules kind of side. So it's always been, when is waterfall successful? Waterfall is successful if you understand all your requirements up front and everything you have to deliver. Hardware engineering, chip and level engineering, you need that because it's incredibly expensive to make a mistake. That if you design a software chip, it costs you about $25 million in today to do a prototype. You don't want to get very many mistakes when you do that. because you're throwing away $25 million. So in that case, waterfall makes sense because you have an incredible amount of front-end effort before you get to the solution because of the value. And I think that's really where you have to look at it. What's the value delivered by doing that waterfall, full solutioning, throw it over the fence to the next stage?
I want to talk about what, first of all, focus on waterfall is dead.
Sure.
So Eric Ries of the Lean Startup books and articles, if you've read it, he said a few pretty profound things. One of them was, waterfall is only appropriate if you completely understand the problem and solution. Agile is only appropriate if you understand the problem but not the solution. And lean you would use if you don't understand the problem or the solution, and you need to figure out both. And so focusing on waterfall for a second, right? I challenge any member to tell me that they have something that they're implementing where they completely understand the problem and solution perfectly. If you do, then you just need a checklist going from 1 through 10, do that and you're done, right? That's not what we're, with the Solution DLC, what we're saying is that, that's just not the case. That's not realistic. Let's not pretend that we live in that world still. There are certain you're right, and specific, very specific, more narrow than I think anyone really implies, where waterfall is still appropriate. But really, in the context of IT organizations and what they're providing and the value they're providing to their customers, internal customers and external customers, waterfall is truly dead.
Yeah. And I would say that in the vast majority of cases,
yes,
it does not apply. And people will continue to try to apply it, but it doesn't. As I said, it isn't dead because there is that small percentage. It's so small, it's not even worth discussing.
So sticking with that for a minute, I mean, you talked, Rob, about I guess the cost of failure or the cost of a redo. And so, in some specific instances, you need to be able to answer those questions, before before the shovel goes in the ground, so to speak.
Yes.
Is that true of, an ERP implementation, of a CRM implementation? Like when you've got that level of complexity, how do you best leverage something like the Solution DLC to make sure that you're finding the right balance between, we're going to iterate and fail fast versus we're going to answer all the questions before the shovel's in the ground?
So an ERP is already decomposed into systems. You've got accounts payable, you've got procurement, you've got your full supply chain. These are all pieces that in some cases you can implement in parallel or standalone. So often as you're implementing your core finance, you can go ahead and do your procurement pipeline because they're not really connected except for the final piece to get the invoice over there. But all procurement setup isn't dependent on the finance setup. So you can do these and you can decide how fast I can fail on these different pieces. And you can fail independently without affecting the rest of the program. So there is lots of flexibility. This definitely applies that you can do a full solution delivery. You could do the fail fast and temporary piece. Look at data migration. Nobody gets data migration right the first time. It is often a multi-part stage piece. And in the end, you may just decide it's good enough. So there is built-in failure in an ERP. You just have to manage it.
It's never one shot. You never shoot your shot and then you don't get another shot at it, right? But the whole concept around Solution DLC and the integration of Agile and good product practice on the front end, CI/CD, integrated CI/CD pipeline on the far end there is you're going to be taking a lot of smaller shots, and it's about organizing those shots appropriately. So even in the case of an ERP here, and I believe you're saying this, is really, it is about, I'm not going to implement everything all at once. I'm not going to implement my whole financials module and my whole, AP module and all of those pieces all in one shot. I'm going to figure out, maybe using some good business analysis practices, some good requirements practices, understanding what's most important versus less important, and order in and stage in what you're going to do. That's just how you build software these days.
Yeah, you're not going to implement and configure your entire ERP, then test it, then hand it over.
No.
You want to, in your individual functions, put the testing as close to the configuration piece and get it done and then moved on.
As we think about Solution DLC relative to software DLC, we're thinking about now kind of the broader ecosystem and the pieces on each end of that. I think about that in relation to like agile to waterfall. And I'm sure, for each of you, you've seen an awful lot of agile implementations that are kind of waterfall and agile clothing. Is that a risk with solution DLC that they just put, people put lipstick on software DLC and they call it solution DLC? And if it is a risk, how do you get around that?
So I'd like to respond because I agree that's a genuine criticism, and I understand where that comes from. One of the main motivations, there were a couple key motivations behind the research and why we did it the way we did it. One of them was around that you don't have a team of 100 or 5,000 people writing code in a company anymore, building their own homegrown HR system, their homegrown ERP, their homegrown data transfer function. This is why we're not talking about software, software and development. That's why we're not talking about software development lifecycle. We're talking about solution delivery. And so how do we support solution delivery? Delivery of off-the-shelf ERP, off-the-shelf products. Maybe there's a little bit of configuration in there, but it is a recognition that the world has changed. It's not about putting a lipstick on a pig. The world has changed.
Right.
We're just not doing it anymore, and we need to catch up with how people are actually delivering solutions in organizations today.
Yeah, and to add to that, even when you're building a custom system, we don't say go out and write it from scratch. We're saying pick a platform, something that gives you a base and a bunch of functionality, and then extend it so that there are solutions out there to do case management. Why would you build your full case management system from the database up? Go ahead and build it on top of something. It gives you a large ecosystem you can leverage, and it already has the full solution delivery built into it, because here is a functioning platform, and all you're doing is building on top of it. And so you start off actually with a solution to deliver. You're just building it on top of it.
And so what actually, sorry, Hari.
No, please.
What you actually end up with is that building on that base, you don't have to configure everything. You just have to figure out and then configure what's changing, and which makes the job, in theory, way easier, because it's just what's changing from A to B, as opposed to what does B need to be.
Yeah, you're not inventing.
Exactly.
So development has turned into configuration. Right. Maybe a little bit of scripting here and there as you need it.
Right. As we think about the roles and responsibilities here, does this model require us being in a product ownership world? Does it require product owners to be successful, or does it work with a variety of kind of operating models?
May I take that first?
Please.
Sure.
Go ahead,
please.
go first.
So a product ownership model implies that there's somebody that's accountable for the delivery of value. So my answer is yes. Can you? Sure. but you're going to miss a lot of the key benefits of the solution delivery lifecycle by not having that role. I'm not going to say person. I'm going to be careful.
Right.
I almost caught myself there. Who is accountable for the delivery of value. So who's accountable for that thing, end to end. And that person needs to be, and person or group needs to be there to make sure, again, using what Vince had said a little earlier on, deliver the right thing, the right time, the right people.
And if, I'll let you go next. I know you want to.
I'll let you go next, but I'm going to go.
All I really was going to say was it really is a question of could versus should.
Yes.
And that's really all I wanted to say. Could you? Yes. Should you? No.
And
we recommend you don't.
And what I want to add is, I think people, if they think that nobody's accountable, they're fooling themselves. There's no ownership. Ultimately, whether you take ownership or not, someone is in the end accountable, which really means you have ownership. You're just not necessarily acknowledging. Because in the end, if your ERP fails or your software development project fails, somebody's going to have to pay for that.
Yeah.
And whether they're willing to accept that or not is up to them. It's better to go in with your eyes open saying, I do own this, I'm accountable, and make sure that you're delivering.
So is there a step zero to all of this, which is like, understand and clarify who is accountable for the delivery of this value? Like, I don't even want to say call it this role or change the roles, but at least clarify who that person is. Is that a fair statement?
That needs to be step one, and you could call the name whatever you want. really that's really, as long as you're internally consistent, call the role whatever you want to call it,
Right.
but somebody needs to be someone needs to be defined as that accountable individual for the delivery of value. And if I could quote from a famous movie, you can guess the title, there can only be one. And
Right.
that's very important.
Right.
Yeah.
I use that line whenever I talk about RACI, and that's sort of
Yes.
what we're talking about here, is that roles and responsibilities.
Yes.
Is there is only one, right?
Yes.
I don't know what movie you're talking about. I'm just joking.
I'm,
But no, I mean, when it comes to, you can have multiple responsible, you can have multiple consulted, you can have multiple informed. For accountable, there is only one, because you need to know with whom does the buck stop, right?
Well,
Without that, you end up with pointing fingers of, well, I thought you were doing it, and I thought you were doing it, and who's actually accountable? We have one person.
And that's where projects fail, is that nobody's willing to make a decision. And often in public sector, this is one of the challenges, that people aren't held accountable, and this is why projects take so long. That we see it less in private sector, is that there tends to be someone accountable, because usually it literally is the buck stops here.
Yeah.
In public, there is less accountability. This is obviously what we're working to change, and I know a lot of the public sector is working to change. But it's the one area that we see it is projects run long because no one is accountable.
Right.
And it's hard when you're looking at election cycles and things. People are on a cycle. Well, after 4 years, I'm no longer accountable, so who cares? So these are the things. That's why accountability is a culture. In other words, trust in the organization is important.
If you're advising, an organization where there isn't sufficient accountability, would you just tell them, okay, well, it sounds like, Solution DLC isn't for you, or how do you get there?
right?
Go for it.
So, we would probably start them elsewhere as
Right.
opposed to Solution DLC to get started. Solution DLC, the way it's laid out, it will link you there, but generally a good info, in fact, all of our good infotech analysts will be able to listen to that and diagnose that and say, okay, without a sense of ownership and accountability here, you could have the most spectacular process, known to person kind, and it will fall apart. And so we would start them with some of our other research that does talk about, product ownership as a function,
Right.
product practices, and in general, and acclimating them to that first, giving them that context to then be able to, I think, really appreciate what this research does.
I think it's a cultural change. That's what you need to instill.
Yes.
And you can only do it. You can't jump in and say, I'm changing your culture. That doesn't work. So that's why you have to sort of build trust
Yes.
and show them that
Yeah.
this thing actually works. And through the examples of different things that makes a difference.
What pieces of research would you guide them to if that's their if accountability is a challenge?
We have a few pieces of research on the product side that would help if we're talking about accountability. There is make the case for product delivery to talk about product management as a very broad concept, as an introductory piece. We have delivering your digital product vision, which talks about the activities that product management should be undertaking. And in terms of the role of product management itself, we have a piece of research that's been recently updated, and it's really well done, Mature and Scale Product Ownership, which talks about